Okay, Rose Van Sant comes to us all the way from Perth. Not that it matters on Zoom, does it? Her latest poetry collections are Cloak of Letters and Nature's Warehouse. Her prize-winning work, including haiku and creative non-fiction, has been published widely in literary journals. In 2015, she was guest poet at the Perth Poetry Festival, the New Norcia Writers Festival 2018, and the York Festival 2021. Rose was patron of the Perth Poetry Festival in 2022, and in March she judged the 2023 Tom Collins Poetry Prize. Rose has also, in great fame and glory, been one of Liquid Amber's Poets in the Spotlight also, and you can find that on our webpage. And tonight, as it turns out, she's off to the Perth Poetry Festival again. It's the launch. So we're very fortunate to have her with us for this first part of the evening. Thank you very much, Rose. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you so much, Rose. It's so wonderful to be here, and welcome everyone. You know, it's just lovely to see you there all together. It's like being in a room with friends. I think that's special. Wonderful to be here, and I come to you from Burraloo, Perth, and I acknowledge and pay my respects to the Whadjuk Noongar people of this beautiful land on which we live, on which I live. It's just lovely. So it's a pleasure to host this first bracket of readings for Liquid Amber Press. And thank you, Rose, and thank you, Pauline. You've been amazing. Thank you. So our first welcome is to Nicki Cassimatis. Nicki's here. Nicki Cassimatis is an educator and poetry for wellbeing practitioner based in Brisbane. Poetry became her accidental mentor and healer some years ago, 10 years ago, to recover from clinical depression and anxiety. And she has since presented at national and international conferences, including her 2016 TED Talk on the power of poetry for personal and community well-being. She has 3 chapbooks published under her pseudonym, Veronica Cassian, Ginninderra Press, 2016 and 2017. Pleasure to have you here, Nicki. Thank you, and please read for us.
Thank you, Rose, and thank you, Rose and Pauline, for having me. It's lovely to be here. I'm a teacher when I'm not playing with words, and this has been very stressful few weeks for teachers, and I've come from school, and so I thought tonight I'd share 3 little vignettes of experiences of school life and see if perhaps you relate to any of them. The first one is called Bitumen. Harsh playground of grazed knees and gravelled palms. Corporal punishment, the order of the day. Wally whacker, flying wooden dusters, precision wooden rulers, marching their way to the principal's office for some. This same bitumen, a comfort treated the right way, with settled bottoms at assembly, rubber soles at dance time, knuckles and marbles in its grooves at play. Once a year, this ground morphed into outdoor photo studio, and the mix of uniform and none, a muted palette in the pre-Polaroid age. Each day, this bitumen cradled the bell, its brass ringing overhead to mark a beginning, a pink lemonade paddle pop at morning tea for 5 cents, a meat pie for 14 at lunch. There's no end. I can still taste the sugar and meat on the tip of my tongue. This one is called Incy Wincy. The bell rings. Time for morning tea. He hangs by a silk thread woven just days earlier. His full body tells of a life well lived, round, robust, web and all. Somehow, even as he hangs there, motionless, devoid of life, he manages to inspire awe and dread below in a new generation of storyteller. Incy Wincy did not come down in the last shower. No water spout in sight where we can sing his tale. And this last one is called The Cosmos Shrinks. I'm known at my school where I do relief work as the plant lady because I love to pick plants and flowers from my garden and use that to motivate the kids into thinking about their well-being in terms of the beauty of nature. So this is called The Cosmos Shrinks. Travelled quite the distance this morning under cloud cover, along soggy, need to be mowed again lawn and potholed bitumen. It parked not far from school, past the lollipop sign and through the school gates. At second glance, a few petals lost along the way. My heart sinks. It was chosen to remain intact, but by second break, a few more petals, and this cosmos, now a tiny remnant of its universe. It still stands tall, enjoying a drink and reminding me that it has given me a memory, an experience. The tiny bud further down the stem reminds me and the children nothing has been lost. Thank you.
The beauty of nature. The beauty of nature, you know, there's nothing like it. Thank you so much, Nicki. Thank you. The next reader is that I'd like to introduce, Esther Ottaway. Esther lives in Nipaluna, Hobart, on the lands of the Munawinia people. She holds many international and national shortlistings and prizes and is acclaimed for her inventive and powerful poetry on women's experiences, including pregnancy, parenthood, divorce, and most recently, autism. Her collection, She Doesn't Seem Autistic, was published this year by Puncher and Waterman. Thank you, Esther. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and congratulations to Anne Kellis and to Liquid Amber on the release of this beautiful new book. I wanted to say a quick hi to Jen Compton and Gayelene Carbis, who are going to read for you later tonight as well. We'll be reading together in Melbourne for La Mama Poetica in a few weeks. I'm going to read 3 short poems in 3 short minutes, and they're all themed around autism. I didn't get the memo, ADHD. Or I get the memo and lose it. Or I read the memo too quickly and misunderstand it. Or I understand the memo, but miss that it refers to today. Or I go to another room looking for what I need for the memo, but don't know why I'm there. Or I gather everything the memo tells me I need, then leave it in the hallway. Or I put the things in the car, then leave them in the car. Or I go to wear what the memo tells me to wear, but I've washed it and forgotten to hang it out. Or I remember the memo in the toilet, but forget it at the desk. Or I write the memo on a sticky note and put some books over it. Or I text myself the memo, but don't check my messages. The memo slides like oil through my fingers. The memo is chiseled onto an ice sculpture, melting. The memo is written on spinning plates. The memo becomes butterflies and I have no net. The memo practices social distancing. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Esther. That was just lovely. How I feel sometimes.
Yes.
Thank you. Kevin, is Kevin here? So Kevin Brophy, I'd like to...
And no, Rose, I think Esther's got some more to read.
Oh, sorry, I apologise.
No worries.
Sorry, I didn't realise when you said thank you, I thought you'd finished. I apologise. Off you go.
Thank you. I've got 2 more short ones. Tigridia, rejection-sensitive dysphoria. Tigridia, shell flower, I bloom on meeting you. Our conversation sparks. I shine, 3-petaled lily in the room. My chat bright, lively, tall and tiger-marked. I unfurl at your friendship for one day. A speckle-patterned time bomb at my heart. Then, in the early evening, shut away, never to open again. Bleak voices start, relentless, vicious insecurity, rejection's sureness, shame. All night I lie in the distressing electricity of tender stamens curling back to die. 1,000 cowed antennae on my brain. Killed bloom, can't bear to get in touch again. What I know about nights, delayed sleep phase disorder. They arrest the open eye. They are measured on a parabola of hopefulness. They study my schedule, throw it away. They sleep with other people of whom I am jealous. They evade questions about mourning. They tell me I'm their special girl. They pass me around, one to the other. They crave my listening ear. They swell in my body as pain. They are the darkness that's dread, the darkness that's light, the darkness I swallow. They are an hourly gamble, losing, losing. They suckle from my tomorrow. They exclude me, occlude me, and in excruciating dawn, leave my time-skinned body asleep through another day and missing you, your world of sunlit living. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. That was, and apologies for interrupting you. So thank you. That's food for thought, certainly. Thank you. So Kevin Brophy, our next reader, is a prize-winning poet, and I was lucky enough to actually meet Kevin in Perth some years ago, and we've been friends. Let's say hello, Kevin. How are you?
Hi, Rose. Good to be in Perth virtually again.
That's wonderful. I think it was the festival time you were here at the time. Yeah, so thank you. So Kevin Brophy is a prize-winning poet, essayist and fiction writer. He's the author of 20 books of poetry, fiction and essays. His latest books are The Line in Love by Finlay Lloyd Publications, 2022, Rock Pooling with Pup, a children's book co-authored with Jules Ober, Ford Street Publishing, 2022, In This Part of the World, NPU Press, 2020, and Look at the Lake, Puncher and Watman, 2018. He is an honorary professor of creative writing in the School of Culture and Communication at the University of Melbourne. Kevin was a 2021 recipient of the Order of Australia, AM, for significant service to tertiary education and creative writing. Congratulations, Kevin, and welcome. And I'd love to hear your poetry. Thank you.
Thanks, Rose. I'm going to read two poems. Lately, I've spent a lot of time around rivers. The first poem's called About Happiness. But the river turns its glint green belly to the day, along beside thin wintering trees that bristle at construction cranes, festooned in safety flags. Police cars on our path fret in blue and red. Further, near the oily mouth of a dark canal, where currents barely shift their thickening selves along, a man shows us plastic sheets he sleeps beneath, and on his phone, videos of Sufis, skirts out, hats on, arms flung like galaxies, and says he needn't think, read, write, or even pray, because a famous prophet took up words and made them sail and spin and blaze away in tender songs that beggars claim can cure hunger. Uniforms and flags, plastic sheets beside a slow canal, are maybe all we have for sure when it's happiness we want. The morning sun flies a cloudy knot of scarves. A low grey barge blows, delivering sand upriver. In a pale lit lane, a child squeals at her mother. Under mist, drizzled along the day's leaky seams, A paper maker shuts fast the door to her shop. Low blades of slanted light slice shade from colour as a blackbird, fist-sized revelation, lifts from a limb. We walk in this mist among statues wearing garlands. Each river's dreaming tongue must take the salted sea at last. Each man waking in a doorway, like a boat unlashed from its capstan, will swivel out into the invisible currents. But no one's written yet of happiness, not really, not yet, not truly, not happiness, the man had said, snapping closed his phone as if it might explode. A wooden door slams, brief and deep and loud. Trees along the river register the wood's ovation. It's a blow that seems to stop all sound for a moment. Shot through with morning light, time slips ahead and past us, pauseless as the river's sleepless spinning onward, happy rush. And the second poem I'm going to read is called Falling and Falling. Loving the falling and the fear of falling too, as the swing chains take her into a curving fall, she cries, push me higher, again, push again, make me go higher. Sweeping past her father, who'll do it again, like an older, more cautious Daedalus, throw her high again, as if flicking her away like a skipping stone, but knowing she'll fall back to him on the curving yank of chains that forbid too much flight, back to where he'll throw her away again. Again, she says, higher, further. And afterwards, deep in a damp dusk garden, when she sees a great tree's cinnamon root plug upturned, its arm trunk flung as if its fall was a lunge back to earth at last, she's thinking, yes, yes, I want to fall too and land like you, deep in a shaded garden. Falling that very night, she falls and keeps falling into the alarming, loving, muffled landing of her sleeping. Thank you. That's all I'm going to read.
Thank you, Kevin. I was trying to unmute myself. That was so beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. Wow, thank you. And do put things in the chat because that's lovely. You know, it's lovely for us to, obviously not as people are reading because I think it breaks the spell in some way. For me, it sort of breaks the spell. But certainly, you know, or whenever you like, really, I guess. So our next reader, Gayelene Carbis. I don't know Gayelene, so I'm looking forward to meeting her and her work. So Gayelene Carbis' Debo collection, Anecdotal Evidence, was a finalist in the International Book Awards 2019. Her second book of poetry, I Have Decided to Remain Vertical, was published by Puncher and Watman in 2022. Thank you, Gayelene. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose.
My pleasure.
I'm going to read two poems too. The first is called Red Horse by the River, and it's after Red Horse by the River, a lithograph by Anselm van Roodt. When you were a child, you drew a red horse by the river. Your teacher told you horses weren't red, but black or brown or grey or white. Your father thought your red was too bold, too bright, a bit over the top for a horse. His eyes turned cold. I think he feared for your future. He called you a sissy under his breath. He blamed me for the red. Your father never denied their existence, though none of us had ever seen them. We'd heard of them out there on the range. Someone said they'd seen one once down there by the river, but no one believed him. I did, though. He went into so much detail, and his eyes went all dreamy. I almost believed I'd seen it too. Your father said your version of red was ridiculous. You should show only what's real and true. I know, you said. I know. And the second poem is called Oranges, and it's after the portrait Catherine Mansfield Interior by Anne Estelle Rice. Gorgeous painting. Oranges. The writer is holding a block of wood. The block of wood is a book. The wooden block is orange. A book is like fruit. It leaves stains on your fingers. The writer's fingers are blocks of orange. Her words are like juice. The writer is not a woman. The writer is an orange. Orange is a word. Woman writer is a block of wood. Hold it, eat it, end it. She writes in wood, holding oranges. A woman is a book. A writer is an orange. A word can be a block. Hold me. Hold all my wood of words and oranges. Thank you.
Wow.
Thank you, Gayelene. That was gorgeous. Thank you. Thank you. It's beautiful poetry being played out today, this evening, really, this evening. So, Anne, we now welcome Anne Carson and M. Carson. So, yes, I'd just like to read her bio. Anne M. Carson writes on unceded Boon Warringong country. She has published 4 collections of poetry, the most recent of which is The Detective's Chair, prose poems about fictional detectives, published by our very own Liquid Amber Press. And I was there at the launch here that evening, and it's just fabulous. I thought I'd read some that night. Anne was shortlisted in the Newcastle Poetry Prize 2022, and she has hosted a range of poetry-led experiments in social activism and is a current PhD candidate in creative writing, writing a poetic biography of George Sand. Anne, love to hear your work.
Thanks very much, Rose. And thanks, Rose and Pauline, for the opportunity. So this is a poem from that poetic biography, which I don't seem to be able to finish. I guess I will one day. Georges Sand, for those of you who don't know, was a prolific novelist and a socially progressive woman from the 19th century France. And she was revered by many artists of her day, considered to be one of the finest French writers of the 19th century, yet her name as a great writer has slipped out of consciousness, particularly in Australia. So one of the things I want this biography to do is to demonstrate the significance of her contribution. And the next poem endeavours to do that. It's a concrete poem and it has the shape of a mobile phone, and you'll see why when I read the poem. It's called The Author Ponders the Weight of Georges Sand's Literary Estate. A 1 kilogram ingot of gold is about the size of a mobile phone. In 1880, 4 years after her death, Sand's children, Maurice and Sol, sold the rights to her enormous literary estate for the equivalent of 36 kilos of gold. Imagine 36 mobile phone-sized bars of gold, surprisingly heavy. 125,000 francs for her entire estate. worth nearly $2 million today. When alive, she sold her autobiography for 130,000 francs, the highest paid author in her day. But income was paycheck to paycheck. She had inherited a small chateau, employed domestic staff, always had a cauldron of soup on the range for the hungry. Even though she didn't believe charity would prompt social change, she gave away over $1 million during her life. Sometimes her shoes had holes, and she went without a winter coat. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, and that was lovely. And next, it's a pleasure to introduce all the way from Toronto in Canada. You know, I have a cousin in Toronto, maybe you know him, Jeff. Jeff Cottrill is a poet and novelist from Toronto, Canada, who has been performing internationally since 2001. He comes to Australia this fall on a book tour, and apparently he's going to be here in Australia next month, so it'd be wonderful. So it'd be wonderful to meet you in person, Jeff. Please read your poems. Thank you. It's a pleasure.
Thank you. Yes, if you know people in Perth or Sydney or Canberra or the Gold Coast, that's where I'll be. So tell your friends there. So for my poem, it's not exactly my poem. There's been a lot of talk lately about artificial intelligence and how that's going to affect our creative endeavors. I thought I'd do my own little experiment with AI poetry. So here is what I call AI poem. Hello, this is Real Poem by Real Poet. Here is metaphor for futility of life. Life is undercooked pie, devoured by crabs in heat, in purple Commodore 64 computer, divided by 43. Why is sky green? Because there is no bananas in portrait of my last Duchess. My name is Ozymandias, hear me roar, and she is buying Stairway in Park with George. Summertime and your mother is easy, and I guess that is why they call it Blue Velvet. Exit pursued by Bear Bodkin. Now Real Poet tries to obtain Arts Council grant. Hello, this is conventional literary poet. Poet writes about nature and poet's pet cat, and struggles of poet's immigrant family before poet was born, and wild caribou that is symbol for futility of life, and much alliteration and sound bonding. An error has occurred. To continue, press Enter to return to the stanza, or press Ctrl-Alt-Delete to restart the poem. If you do this, you will lose any unsaved imagery in all of the previous lines. Error, OE, 016F, BFF 9B3D4. Press any key to continue. 0% complete, 13% complete, 34% complete, 57% complete, 78% complete, 93% complete, 98% complete, 99% complete, 100% complete. Hello, this is Real Poet. Now Real Poet tries to score high slam points. Hello, this is Slam Poet. Poet is very politically aware and cares deeply about relevant social issues and uses audience as personal group therapy and uses word awesome sauce for laugh and ends poem before 3-minute time limit. Real Poem ends now. Signed, Real Poet. So there you go. There's my AI poem. I will put some fun stuff in the chat right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you. We weren't sure which was you and which was the machine, but there we go. You know, it was wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. It's a lot of fun. Yeah, so Joe France, and after Joe, we have Jennifer Compton, and Jennifer will be our last reader for this bracket. So Joe France is based in Hobart and enjoys a variety of artistic pursuits, including printmaking, painting, and poetry. This is her first open mic, welcome, Joe. Always a little bit nerve-wracking the first time, but we're really looking forward to hearing you read. Thank you.
Thank you, Rose. I feel like the new kid on the block, definitely, but thank you for including me. I have two poems to read. My first poem is called Murmuration. In one breath, the starlings rise, kinetic waves flatten and reshape, a sky dance of patterns too swift for our brains to compute. Internal rhythm pulses through our veins, synchronous movement in time with our breath, a full orchestra minus conductor. Abruptly, they break ranks. Multiple wing beats disperse into silence. We are left at dusk, uplifted, silently applauding the everlasting covenant of living things. And my next poem is called Eidolon. We wander barefoot amid knots of unseeing adults, three petite apparitions in cotton nighties, hair caked with unrinsed shampoo, our shared bath disrupted. The house swells with aunts and uncles murmuring sotto voce. Neighbours approach in turn, lay casseroles at our back step. Deep into the night, the gentle slap of the screen door as each visitor departs. I drift outside, sit subservient under a cloudless sky. A canopy of marbled light blankets my bones, my glacial flesh, powerless to unearth my brother. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much, Joe. And we'll hope to hear you again. I'm sure we will. It'll be wonderful. If you're ever in Perth, look us up. So the last reader, Jennifer Compton, really perhaps needs no introduction. Certainly I've known Jennifer for a while. And Jennifer lives in Carrum in Melbourne, out on the Frankston line. Her most recent book, The Moment Taken, was published by Recent Work Press in 2021. So welcome, Jennifer, and it'll be wonderful to hear you read. Thank you.
Hi, Rose. How you doing? Can you hear me?
It's beautiful. Thank you.
I'm going to read one longish poem. It's a very old poem. It's at least 30 years old. It won a competition that was put out by Ulatara magazine 30 years ago. And recently I was thinking it might be a good idea to put together my selected. I mean, every poet towards the end of their writing life should look at the poems that they want to keep. But I came around, I struck a reef with this poem, because although it was a successful poem and I liked the poem and I still like it, I was very lax about punctuation and line ending and form and stanza length, and dear God, I couldn't decide how legitimate it was to get in there and punctuate, etc. So I'm taking this occasion to read it to you and to feel bounce back, which one always does when there's an audience. Even if it's an audience on Zoom, one always feels the echo returning. It's set in a village called Wingelow, where I used to live. I lived for many years, and it's called Blue Leaves. One of those days, the old men of the village stand transfixed, hallucinating in the middle of the road. The mothers with their strollers float an inch above the ground. Their infants lean out and babble to the glorious stones, the wild apple, the roadside plum tree, blackberry castling on the vacant lots. We tossed the children up onto the ponies, took to the forest, took the pinecone path, talking together the way birds talk. The ponies put their noses to the scent. The children swaddled in the uterine rocking, somewhere above, behind our line of sight, spending the day walking ourselves dazed, walking ourselves into a considerable fugue. out into the open on the ochre watercourse, under the dazzling, unrelenting sun, pulling up into the breathless azimuth, into all that spacious, unresisting blue. The pony's hooves fly sideways, strike stones, going up against the way the water runs, into the place the sky becomes horizon, and the forest spills behind us down the hill. I remember a splintering, a smashing, like walking through a pane of glass, walking through myself, and yet still talking. I can hear myself talking. There is a lot of blue in those leaves. There is a lot of blue in that green. And all the blue leaves lean out towards me, gesturing complicity. And the sky is pulsing, and the sun is throbbing incidentally, an imperturbable heartbeat drumming us in unison. Everything is waiting for a sort of gasp, a kind of choking in my throat. I am behind my eyes again, within my skin. My hand is grasping for the rain.
Wow.
Thank you very much for all the good bounce back.
Thank you so much, Jennifer. That was a lovely ending. To go back before we go forward, you know, the past informs the future, which is so lovely for that. Thank you. And thank you, Rose, for having me here, and Pauline. And thank you all. It's been a pleasure. It's probably more nerve-wracking to do the MC than actually for me to read half a dozen books. But there you are. I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Rose. And
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much, Rose. Lovely to
thank you, everyone. Thank you.
lovely to have your you know, such kind and calm presence for all the readers. So we really appreciate it, and enjoy the Perth Poetry Festival. So see you later. We know you've got to run, but it's been great to have you with us.